We all get knocked down in life, but what truly matters is that we have the strength to get back up.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have an incredibly inspiring story for you. It's the story of struggle, resilience, and ultimate freedom. So let's dive in. Once upon a time, there was a man named Nelson who lived in a country called South Africa. Now, South Africa is a beautiful land with people from all over the world coming to experience its vast beauty. But back then, many years ago, this beauty was marred by a terrible law called apartheid.
You see, this law divided people based on the color of their skin. If you were white, you were considered superior. And if you were black, you were treated horribly. Couldn't even walk down the street without being harassed by the police. Your job was never secure, and your family could be torn apart at any moment. The white government could just decide that they didn't want you living in your home and force you out into a small area far away from everything. And if you dared to fight back, you would be thrown into a dark, dank prison cell without ever getting a trial. And it didn't matter whether you were rich or poor, educated or not, no one was safe. Everyone was judged by the color of their skin. Now, despite all this hate and anger, there was one man who refused to give up hope. His name was Nelson Mandela. He had been arrested many times for trying to end apartheid. But each time he was released, he started right back where he left off, working to end this horrible law. He traveled all over the world, meeting with leaders and telling them about the terrible things that were happening in his country. He wanted the world to know about apartheid and to help end it. He also worked closely with the United Nations and other groups to try to bring about change in South Africa. As time passed, more and more people began to join Nelson in his fight for freedom. They organized protests and marches demanding that the government end apartheid once and for all. But the white government was afraid of losing power, so they cracked down hard on anyone who opposed them. People were beaten, tortured, and even killed for wanting a better life. Still, Nelson never gave up hope. He knew that one day apartheid would end, and that South Africa would become a free country where everyone was equal. Finally, after years of struggle and sacrifice, Nelson's dream came true. On May 1994, South Africa held its first free election. People from all races came together to vote and choose their leaders. This was a momentous occasion, a day when South Africa turned the page on its history of oppression and began a new chapter of freedom and democracy. Apartheid was finally over, and Nelson Mandela became the first president of South Africa's new government. He was a symbol of hope and inspiration, proving that even in the darkest of times, one person can make a difference. Nelson's story reminds us that no matter how difficult our circumstances may seem, we should never give up hope. With courage, determination, and the support of others, we can overcome any obstacle and create a better future for ourselves and our communities. So let's now take a closer look at this incredible man. Born in a small village in South Africa in 1918, Nelson Mandela's life was forever changed when he learned about the harsh realities of apartheid. As a young lawyer, he joined the African National Congress, or ANC, where he became a leader in the fight against racial segregation. In 1962, he was arrested for his political activities and sentenced to life in prison. Despite spending 27 years behind bars, Mandela never lost hope. He became a global icon of peace and justice, with people from all over the world calling for his release. Finally, in 1990, apartheid was officially ended and Mandela was set free. He went on to become the first president of South Africa's new democratic government and worked tirelessly to promote equality and reconciliation among the country's people. Mandela's unwavering commitment to justice and his ability to forgive his oppressors have made him an enduring symbol of hope and inspiration to people around the world. Before we continue, I want you to understand the significance of the word apartheid. It comes from the Afrikaans language and means separation. But it's not just about physical separation. It's about how this law destroyed families, friendships, and communities. Imagine going to school and being told that you are inferior because of the color of your skin, or walking down the street and being called racial slurs by people you don't even know. That's what apartheid was like. But despite all this hate and division, there was one group of people who refused to give up. They were known as the Freedom Fighters. These were ordinary people who had had enough of being treated like second-class citizens. They wanted to live in a country where they could walk down the street without being harassed by the police, where they could get jobs and access quality education and healthcare. where their children would not be ashamed of their heritage. The freedom fighters organized themselves into groups and began planning acts of resistance. At first, these were peaceful protests, like boycotting the stores that supported apartheid. But as the years went on, the resistance grew more radical. There were acts of sabotage, like blowing up buildings and trains, and there were violent clashes between the freedom fighters and the police. The government responded with even more oppression. They passed laws that made it illegal to gather in groups of more than 2 people. They banned political parties and organizations, and they created special courts that allowed them to jail people for up to 5 years without charging them with a crime. But the freedom fighters did not back down. They knew that their struggle was just and that they were fighting for a better future for themselves and their children. Unfortunately, many of the freedom fighters paid a heavy price for their bravery. They were arrested, tortured, and killed. But their sacrifice did not go in vain. Their acts of courage inspired others to stand up against injustice and demand a better world. Let's now meet one of these brave individuals, a man named Steve Biko. Born in 1951, Biko was a student when he learned about the horrors of apartheid firsthand. He was arrested for protesting against the government and spent years in prison where he was tortured and beaten. Despite this, Biko continued to speak out against apartheid, both inside and outside of prison. In 1977, he led a protest that resulted in a police officer being shot. Although Biko himself was not involved in the shooting, he was blamed and sentenced to death. Tragically, Steve Biko was one of the many freedom fighters who lost their lives in the struggle against apartheid. But his death did not break the movement. Instead, it fueled the fight for justice and equality. One of the most important figures in the fight against apartheid was a woman named Albertina Sisulu. She was a mother, a social worker, and a fearless activist who dedicated her life to fighting for equality. Sisulu was involved in the African National Congress, or ANC, from its early days, helping to organize protests and rallies. When the ANC was banned, she continued her activism underground, providing shelter and resources to those in need. Sisulu's bravery and dedication made her a target of the apartheid government, who imprisoned her multiple times. But she never wavered in her commitment to the cause. Sisulu's unwavering dedication helped pave the way for a new South Africa, free from the shackles of apartheid. Her story is a testament to the power of one person to make a difference in the world. Now let's talk about one of the most influential figures of our time, Mahatma Gandhi. This man's ideas had a profound impact on the world, inspiring people to fight for justice and equality through nonviolent resistance. Born in India in 1869, Gandhi studied law in England. Before returning home to defend those who could not afford their own lawyers, he quickly became involved in politics, advocating for the rights of the poor and marginalized. Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance, or Satyagraha, was born out of his belief in the inherent goodness of humanity. He believed that through peaceful protest, people could challenge unjust laws and systems of oppression. This philosophy would go on to inspire countless movements for social change around the world. One of the most famous examples of Gandhi's philosophy in action was the Indian independence movement. Under his leadership, millions of Indians protested against British rule through non-violent means such as civil disobedience and boycotts. This movement ultimately led to India's independence in 1947, but Gandhi's influence extended far beyond India's borders. His ideas inspired the American civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, as well as the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. Even today, Gandhi's philosophy continues to inspire activists and leaders around the world who are working to create a more just and equitable world. You see, the journey towards freedom is rarely easy. There are times when it seems like all hope is lost. But as Nelson Mandela showed us, it's important to keep fighting for what you believe in, no matter how difficult it may seem. Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, but he never gave up hope. He knew that one day apartheid would end, and that South Africa would become a free country where everyone was equal. And in 1990, apartheid was finally ended, and Mandela became the first president of South Africa's new democratic government. So whenever you feel like giving up, remember the words of Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. Remember the story of Nelson Mandela, a man who fought for freedom and equality for all people, no matter their race or background. He showed us that one person can make a difference, and that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and family. We would love to hear your thoughts and comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story.